Alright, this is Niz with NizCast episode 11, and I said I was going to do this video on ganking, but I lied. I'm actually going to be covering mid and laning mid and the real basics of mid, because I think it's important to cover this, and it's going to transition really well into ganking, because generally mid plays that ganking role. So, you know, I think this is going to be good to cover these things. Similar to how I did covered wards, because I think understanding wards and how warding works is really important in terms of ganking. So I just kind of picked a random replay of Chu, and he's laning mid here, so we just have something kind of to watch. I'm not sure how well this is going to play out, but you know, he's playing Pyromancer. Hopefully he'll demonstrate what I'm trying to explain. So anyways, just playing this, so we've got something to watch, jumping into it. Mid is generally 1 versus 1. So that's pretty much how it's going to be different than the side lanes. You're 1v1 unless you're in a higher level game, and there's a few exceptions where maybe you lane 2v1 mid or 2v2 mid. Mid is generally 1v1, so I'm going to be talking about that. So I already kind of talked about how side lanes aren't 1v1, so that's kind of how it's different. But what does that mean? Well, first of all, there's the same number of creeps mid as there is in side lanes, so if we're only 1 hero in the mid lane versus 2 in the side lane, instead of splitting the experience, we're getting all the experience. We're getting soul experience, so we're getting more, so we have an advantage. We're getting more experience than the side lanes. Gold works the same way. We've got 2 heroes fighting over gold mid versus 4 heroes fighting over gold top or bottom. So there's going to be essentially more gold per hero in mid lane than there is in a side lane. So we've got a gold and an experience advantage mid. So because of this, mid kind of is a more important role, and I kind of struggle to use the word important there because I think it's kind of wrong. I think supports definitely are important, or carry is definitely important at different points in the game, actually throughout the game. But maybe have a larger impact or something like that is maybe a better way of phrasing it, because, you know, mid kind of is going to be an investment for your team. If you're investing in a player and a hero to go and get more experience or more gold, then you know, hopefully they can do something for your team, kind of help you get further ahead. And so I guess they kind of have a larger impact on the game because they are kind of that powerhouse early on. So how do we go about laning mid and using this kind of advantage? Well, we've got 3 core items that almost every single mid is going to get. The first one's going to be bottle. You pretty much get bottle, and you get it because it gives you health regen and mana regen, and if we're able to control runes, we can refill our bottle, give us more health and mana regen. If we refill and our opponent can't, then we should have an advantage there. But it also is going to give us a power-up advantage, so we have a power-up which allows us to gank, but it also allows us to, maybe if we just kind of hold it, an opportunity to gank will arise if there wasn't one when we got it. So that kind of puts us in a better situation. But we could also hold on to a rune when we're in the middle lane. Say we're Devourer and we have haste bottled. We're a hell of a lot, you know, more intimidating when we've got that haste bottled than when we don't. So runes kind of play that important part, and bottle allows us to make the most, I guess, out of runes. So we are controlling runes and using that to fill our bottle. Next item we're going to get is boots, and that allows us to get to runes faster. That's the main reason why we're getting it. It also allows us to get to side lanes faster if we're going to gank. It also gives us a move speed advantage over mid if we get boots before them, which gives us a harass advantage, because if we're able to move faster, we can position ourselves better, and it allows us to get more auto attacks in because of our move speed. And the third thing we're going to get is a teleport. Teleports allow us to teleport to a side lane if a gank opportunity presents itself. It also allows us to teleport to save a teammate if they're getting dove on or something like that. And it also helps us to teleport if, say we didn't get that rune. Say Devourer got a rune, haste rune top, and he's going top. It allows us to teleport top to kind of counter gank and help support our team. So it's not a huge advantage in a 3v2. It's going to be a 3v3, but they do have rune, right? Hopefully that makes sense. We actually did see a teleport from Plague not too long ago when Pyro got slept there. And they were going to open on him, but Plague ported in. He had support from his team. So side lanes, it's generally good to get a teleport early too. Don't want to get too sidetracked there. So those are kind of all items that are going to... And mid kind of all revolves around getting runes. Now, rune control mainly starts with vision. If we have vision of runes, then it allows us to get runes easier. So Hellborn has awarded bottom rune, which is pretty typical. Hellborn generally awards bottom rune, and Legion generally awards top rune, like they did here. And that's because, you know, when you're bottom, you generally buy 2 wards. If you're Hellborn bottom, you generally buy 2 wards, 1 to block the pull, and 1 to ward the rune. So this is something that's kind of came over from Dota, because you could only buy wards in sets of 2. But, you know, it's pretty standard in most games. You're going to see bottom double warding. Sometimes top Legion will, or a Hellborn will ward, or maybe you'll have 2 wards up. But this is pretty typical. You're going to have 1 rune warded. It's probably going to be bottom if you're Hellborn. So now that we have vision of runes, it allows us to know where it is, so we can get there. Now it's also important to know travel times from mid to get to the rune. If we are Hellborn, it is faster for us to go from mid to bottom rune than it is for Legion to go from mid to bottom rune. So it's important. We've got an advantage going to bottom rune. But on the flip side, it's faster for Legion to go from mid to top rune than it is for Hellborn to go from mid to top rune. So Legion's got an advantage that way. So we have to know this, and we have to know that when we're Hellborn, generally bottom's our rune, and generally top is Legion's rune. Now, when you see a lot of people play, especially at lower levels, so some people seem to play around top rune a lot more than they do around bottom rune, and I find that a little weird, but don't really want to get too off topic again. So having vision and knowing the travel times is definitely something that we can use to our advantage. Another thing we can use to our advantage is using creep equilibrium, or push and pull of the lane, as I call it, or as I called it in my earlier videos, to position ourselves better. If we can push the lane at the right time, then the person we're up against, the player we're up against, won't necessarily be in as good of a position as we are to get those runes. So if we push at the right time, and Devourer's back at his base, or back at his tower, with the creeps on him, then that's going to allow us to not only... Oh, Devourer's teleporting here. Oh, look, he teleported, got a gank. And Chu doesn't have a teleport. So he's walking it. It doesn't really look like he's going to have to port here anyways. But, so if the creeps are, you know, Devourer's back at his tower with the creeps on him, that's going to put us in a better position to get top rune, even though that should be a Legion advantage. And we already have the advantage going to bottom rune. We should be faster getting there. So you can see if we push at the right time, it can be beneficial. Now, I think Chu did this earlier. Hopefully he did. Let's look at the 6-minute mark, see if he did it. Yeah, he's evening out the creeps here. He's probably going to wave. Yeah, he's going to wave, kill him off, and that's going to push the lane. Now, there's a ballista here, so it's not necessarily pushing the lane exactly. But if he really pushes that, then those creeps would be on Devour, and he'd be able to push it. Let's see, maybe he does it at 4 minutes as well. We're at 4 minutes. Okay, the creeps, same kind of thing. He's evening them out. He's going to wave. He probably should have hit that archer once and waved it. But yeah, you see the creeps are starting to push forward. Had he attacked that archer once and waved it, those creeps would have been completely forward. And these creeps wouldn't have been attacking the archer, and they would have been on Devour. So that would have allowed us to get top rune. We're definitely in position to get top rune. And Devourer's, there's no way he's going to run around with the entire creep wave on him. That would also allow us to get bottom rune. He's just going to back to his tower. That isn't exactly happening here, but I hope you understand that. You see a lot of... I got to fast forward back to where we were. You see a lot of other heroes that do this really well. A lot of heroes that people like mid. Soul Stealer is an amazing example. when Soul Stealer's mid, he generally uses his hands or razors or whatever they're called in Han to push the lane at the right time so he can control runes. And if he has more mana, he can even do more and more hands and raises, which is kind of how Soul Stealer spirals out of control. So he's basically what he's doing is he's timing those at the right time so he can control the rune. Defiler does the same thing. A lot of mid heroes have that AoE ability that allow them to do that. You don't have to have it, but it's something nice to have, and it allows you to get those runes. So hopefully I explained how you can do that, and hopefully that made sense. And the last thing is, once we are getting ourselves in a position to get those runes, we have to understand how to use them. Now, we definitely see an advantage in having a rune to gank. But if we, say we put ourselves in a position, we've pushed them all the way back to their tower mid, so we're in a position to get top rune. We've got a ward bottom, and we start running top. So we run top, we get haste. Well, what if that's warded? Then if we run top with haste, chances are they're just going to back and we're not going to be able to do anything. Or we run top with double damage or anything, we're not going to be able to do anything because they're going to back, and really we've just wasted time. So it's important for us to know when an opportunity has arisen to gank and how we should really use those runes. And it takes a good understanding of mid and ganking and understanding wards to see when these opportunities arise. And it's not necessarily the role of mid to gank. You think of, if you've got Pebbles mid, yeah, he's going to gank a lot. Deadwood mid, yeah, he's going to gank a lot. That's kind of his role in the game. He's supposed to be that mid powerhouse to gank. But if you put Silhouette mid, well, Silhouette's your carry, and she should probably be farming. But, if a really good opportunity arises for her to gank, obviously it's a good opportunity for her to gank. So she's going to gank, and she's going to help her side lane out. And it's also not going to set her behind. But if it's a bad opportunity and she's constantly trying to force a gank as a carry, if that gank fails, she's actually wasting more and more time, and she's putting herself further back in the game. So, you kind of have to understand these situations. And that's what I'm going to try to cover in my next video on ganking. I'm going to try to cover knowing these opportunities and creating these opportunities to gank, whether you're in the mid lane or the side lane or whatever. Anyways, this is NizCast episode 11. Hopefully that all made sense. Hopefully that clarified the basics of mid and kind of gave you a good foundation. Definitely tune in for my next video. Thanks.